Coach Watkins, Victory Monday. Thank you for your time. Great game against Golden West College. Can you tell us a little about the flow of that game? And it was very similar to last season. Golden West would just not go away.
Yeah, it was a hard-fought battle. Score doesn't really tell the whole story. The game was weird in a sense that, our defense was on the field for the majority of the game, or majority of the first half, going back and forth, trading scores, and then we kind of seized the momentum going into the half on a long field goal from Raul Reyes, and then we carried that momentum into the second half where we kind of pulled away from them. I think we ended up scoring 4 of the next 5 touchdowns in the second half and created some really good separation that kind of let us coast to the end there.
Yeah, it was one of those weird games because total yards of offense, they had more than us. The first downs were neck and neck. We had 23 first downs. They had 22. Time of possessions, they actually held the ball more than we did. I believe they had 30 minutes on their side against 29 on ours. Tell us about that game as far as what was the difference in order for us to get over the top.
So one of the things that I've focused on since I become a junior college offense coordinator is winning the time of possession battle. And so this is probably the first time in a long time that we actually did not win time of possession, but was for a very good reason. Our special teams units and our defense this past week provide the offense with incredible average starting field position. And there's a number of possessions in the game in which we're starting in plus territory, which as an offensive coordinator, you'll trade plus territory for total yardage every single game. And so the lack of time of possession, the lack of total yardage is definitely due to fewer plays run. We had a number of special teams plays that led to really quick touchdowns. I think the first drive we got the ball on the 5-yard line after a punt block, and then there's another punt block in the second quarter in which we actually returned it for a touchdown. Sure. And so those are plays and possessions that the offense is losing, but we'll trade those points for possessions lost every single time. And so the yardage and the stats may not look like a 51-point win, but a 51-point score, but that's due to the fact that we're starting on such short fields, which
sure
we'll take that every single Saturday.
Sure. Let's talk a little bit more about that special teams play, which I think they've played tremendous so far, and particularly with this game, they definitely set the tone and, in a sense, kind of bailed out the defense a handful of times. Gardner has been returning the ball well. I think he set up a couple of 40-yard returns, and as you mentioned, especially in the fourth quarter, I believe he set up a return which gave us the ball 40-yard line on the opposing side. So was that a focus on this year's not only players but staff? Because I know last year we had some special teams gaffe that caused us the game.
Yeah, I mean, there were, every offseason you're looking for ways to get better as a program as a whole, and so one of the areas that I identified was special teams. Not that we were bad last year, but there was definitely room for improvement. And so this year, Coach John Roberts is our special teams coordinator, and he leads the Wild Bunch. That's the name of our special team group, and it's a prideful group, and they're excited to play, and he gets them to play hard every day and run down and want to be wild. They want to be a crazy group that changes the game. And so Saturday morning, I challenged them in the pregame meeting before we left San Diego. I challenged them to create some points and dominate field position. And boy, did they answer that call.
Sure.
They did both, not only setting up points, but they actually scored points. I like I mentioned to you last year, I believe one of the easiest ways to improve as a junior college program is through special teams. And so to see them playing really well early in the season is something that I hope that we can continue to see, which I believe will lead to better results for our program as a whole.
Well, let's speaking of scores, let's talk about how big that kick was at the end of the first half. Raul Reyes connecting on a 41-yard field goal, which gave us the lead again, 23-21. How big was that kick?
That is a huge momentum swing for us. I believe, if I'm correct, they had just scored to take the lead. Offensively, I think we went stagnant slightly a little bit there in the second quarter. We had a drive within a 2-minute drive with about a minute left in the half. We actually had a big play that we did not convert on right before that kick, and so we challenged the offense to end every single drive in a kick of some sort. Hopefully, obviously a PAT, right? But if you can't get a PAT, then you want to get a field goal. If you can't get a field goal, then you want to punt it away. You just want to turn it over, right? And so going into the half, being down in a game in which I felt like we had dominated the first half, the score didn't show that because we were losing. But being able to kick a field goal, 41-yarder for Raul, which that's his first collegiate kick, and the hit from 41 to seize that momentum gave us a nice push going into the locker room, and then we just challenged the boys at the half to not look back. Just use that momentum, take the air out of that crowd, and build upon that result going into the third quarter.
Yeah, that was definitely a big kick. Watching the broadcast, there's definitely a momentum shift going into halftime into the third quarter with that kick. Now let's talk about Yam, and I know numbers were amazing: 19 of 26 for 219 and 5 touchdowns. We know who he is. Is it particularly interesting and exciting the relationship and the chemistry that he's having right now with McManus at the wide receiver tight end position?
Yeah, I mean, Yam's playing. Saturday was his second collegiate game. Obviously he did not play to the level at which he would have liked to week one. And we challenged him on Monday to function within the offense. We had a long meeting, myself, Coach Matt Reyes, who coaches the quarterbacks, and the other quarterbacks in the room. And we went through that game film against Southwestern, and we picked it apart. We picked it apart and kind of showed him, gave him the film breakdown through my eyes. It's really important that as a play caller, that your trigger man sees the game the way you see it.
Sure.
And so we run a very quarterback extensive offense where the quarterback has to make a ton of decisions, both pre-snap and post-snap. And we spent a little more quality time with him on Monday, showing him the way that I see the game. And so. Again, like I said, that was the first time he's played quarterback for me in the offense, and so we weren't quite on the same page. So it was really important that we spent a little extra time to make sure we're seeing it the same way. And so he went out there this past Saturday, and he orchestrated the offense exactly the way that I would like to see him do it going forward. I tell him to drive the car like he stole it. Don't go out there, tiptoeing around. Go out there and play football. And so I think he did a really good job of managing the game, keeping us out of bad spots and taking advantage of mismatches and taking advantage of schematic errors on the defensive side of the ball and making sure that we had a chance to be successful. And so he spends a lot of time working with the wide receivers, developing chemistry with all of them, getting to know where they like the ball. Do you like it high and outside? Do you like it slightly underthrown? Do you like it out in front of you so you can go and get it? And so with each of our wide receivers being different athletes, he has to be able to manage each one of their strengths and keep them away from their weaknesses. And I thought he did a phenomenal job of that on Saturday.
He did, and we talked about it a couple of days ago. He definitely looked a whole lot more relaxed and let the game come to him as opposed to, his first start where it seems like he was kind of pressing a little bit. Yeah. So it'll be exciting to see what he does this weekend. We had some struggles on defense. We had a problem stopping the run. Golden West was able to gash us for 160 yards. And it seems like we made some adjustments there in the second half. Can you tell us a little bit about how we're going to address that?
Yeah, I mean, our defense, like every aspect of our program, has to get better every week, and so Golden West is historically a passing team, and they did have a young man at quarterback. I believe his name was Nathaniel Espinoza.
Yes.
Who's a very dynamic
Amazing
quarterback. I mean, that guy can beat you with his arm and with his legs. And so he has suffered an injury during week one versus Fullerton, and so we weren't quite sure if he was going to play or not. And so we get to the game, and he's suited up, and he's taking part in warm-ups, and so we had some things in the game plan to kind of try to take him out of the game or try to contain him during the game. And he got loose a couple times and kept some plays alive. And you watch college football every Saturday. There's nothing more dangerous than a quarterback that keeps plays alive and allows his wide receivers to get behind coverage. And he took advantage of that on Saturday. As far as the run game is concerned, we didn't expect him to run the ball. And so and definitely not as well as they did. But, there's a give and take there when you can make a team that is predominantly a air raid football team that prides himself on throwing the ball 56 times a game, and you make them what we call dribble left-handed. You know what I mean? Like I didn't believe going into the game that they could beat us if their game plan was to run it at us. I mean, they are a throwing team, and if they're running the ball, in our opinion, they're playing left-handed, or dribbling the ball with their left hand. And so we would gladly trade their rushing success over having to defend their explosive pass game. And so at the end of the day, we're not concerned with stats or numbers or how many yards they rush for. There's only one stat that truly matters, and that's the final score. And defensively, offensively, and special teams wise, we accomplished the mission, which was to leave Huntington Beach 1-0.
Absolutely, that's a good point. But I do know there is one stat I know you're a little concerned about, or actually probably concerned about a whole lot. Is we're still suffering from some penalties on the field. 12 penalties for over 100 yards this weekend. How are we going to address that? What's the message for the team? And moving forward to next weekend.
Yeah, so discipline. It's something that we have to harp on and preach this week about not putting ourselves in bad spots. There were a number of times on Saturday in which we made critical errors that led to drives being extended for their offense, or putting our own offense in a bad spot. Instead of playing 2nd and 8, we're playing 2nd and 13 because we jump off sides, or we didn't hear the snap count on the goal line. Like, those are critical errors that didn't cost us this weekend, but could most definitely cost us later on in the season. And so we'll work very hard this week to clean that up and tighten the strands a little bit on the discipline as far as pre-snap logistics are concerned, and we'll definitely be better than we were this past week as far as penalties go. Now, obviously, there are some penalties in the game that they just happen. Holdings are going to happen, pass interference are going to be called. We are focusing on the penalties that we control, like 12 men on the field, like offsides, missing the snap count. Those are things that we control, and so we must eliminate those going forward.
Sure. So LA Pierce this weekend, homecoming. I'm sure we've turned the page on victory, and we're starting to do our research on them. What do we know about them, and what's our plan? Yeah. Without going over all the fine details, of course. Yeah. And what should we look forward to this weekend?
Coach Carlos Woods is the head coach there at LA Pierce. I believe he's going into his 2nd year there, and he has turned that program around already. I had an opportunity to see them live this year already in a scrimmage versus Southwestern College, and they look like a completely different football team in comparison to what we saw last year when we visited them. And so I totally expect them to show up ready to rock and roll and ready to compete for 4 quarters. And they have a number of athletes on the field that can run around and make plays. They have a pretty solid wide receiving core, along with some quarterbacks that can get the ball to those guys in space. And they're big and physical on the defensive line. And so we're expecting a battle. It's going to be a football game that we have to show up, put our best foot forward, and obviously play a clean game, and again strive to leave that game 1-0.
Coach Watkins, thank you for your time, and we'll see you next Monday, hopefully with another Victory Monday.
That's the plan. See you this Saturday night, 6 p.m. homecoming. Be there.